Alright, so here we are with another drawing in the dark, a Jade Monkey production. I am Levi Smith, and today we are going to work on another skull piece for the All Skulls coloring book. Let me switch over to this one here. So this is going to be a smaller addition to a page that I needed to fill like half the page up with at least. So it's a smaller piece, but as you can see here, we are starting with a much more basic sketch that we're going to work things up from. The idea on this one is pretty straightforward. It's going to be a skull with wings. So you can kind of see that I've just flipped things over in that sketch. Nice and super basic. So the first thing that I want to do is get in some basic shapes, work out my center lines, and I had seen this little tip online about kind of thinking about the eye space as a mask, and that was pretty interesting to me. Maybe even in this case, kind of like sunglasses. So we'll see how helpful that little trick is with this skull here. So I'm just going to work in a pretty basic skull. I'm not sure what I should do with this one as far as like thematic styling. Probably something maybe, I don't know, angelic. Makes sense, right? Anyway, yeah, so welcome to another drawing. A drawing in the dark. Doing pretty good. Hope everybody is doing well out there in the real world. We all seem to be doing pretty good here on the internet, right? Everybody's happy, peaceful. No contentions. No strange propagandist political machinations. Everything's good in the world. Climate's all good. Everybody's happy about everybody being free, being themselves, right? Yeah. We can hope. At least in here, there's just drawings. Just pictures. Nobody mad at you for who or what you are or are not. That's kind of trickier to say, I guess, than I anticipated. Look at that. Just kind of bust out a wing real easy here. Fill this in just so I can get... Now, and I've said this before, for my All Skulls coloring book, these black and shaded kind of sketchy areas, this isn't how the artwork like ends up in the book. It's all like a clean line work that that'll be easy to color and interpret. One of the questions I do have for the book, though, is whether or not I should fill in like these little cheek spaces and the nose and the eyes. If I should fill those in black. I mean, they look better in the book on its own, I think, but it kind of takes a coloring option away. As a coloring book, I think doing so does not serve the coloring book. But I don't know. Maybe that's something that people will just find to be a little bit easier. But at the same time, it takes away that opportunity to say, make the eyes like glowing, or to add eyeballs, or there's some options that, as somebody that would want the coloring book myself, I think I should just end up leaving it open. to serve the coloring book versus to serve the art. So we'll see. I mean, I might do a little bit of both. And I might go back and forth on that idea a number of times. I definitely am leaning towards leaving the eyes and stuff unshaded. But here, just scribbling in some detailed notes into the wings here. And really, like a lot of this, I will kind of consider as like notation drawing. I'm not cleaning anything up yet. I'm not erasing anything. These aren't any final lines. I have the freedom to kind of go in and move around and think about different aspects. I'm not correcting so much in a way, not a lot of undos, not a lot of erasing. Kind of moving through the piece, kind of like with a flow, even to the point where I'm not, I'm not even like super hyper focused on the piece or any particular element. I'm more focused on the piece, what I see, what I see overall. Now I'm going to flip the wing over, but I'm not really worried about, say, like this feather, at least not yet. I'm just looking at compositionally how it's going to look at first glance. How well we can read the image. Because you do read an image. Your mind interprets what's going on, what it sees, does a little bit of filling in the blanks, makes a few assumptions on its own, but it is a read. And if things aren't legible, if they're not well composed, if stuff like that isn't even considered, then it can be difficult to read the image. It'll take longer to interpret. It'll take longer, and sometimes it's just not even interpretable. I'm sure whoops, you may have undo that. You may have noticed that with some imagery. Maybe for some people in comics and stuff, the artwork can be a little wonky at times here and there. One of the things, one of the first considerations I have for a piece is that readability. From there, and I'll go into this, and this one, I'm moving pretty good with this one. So, cranking this one out. I mean, it's a pretty straightforward little piece. Nothing to really, climb to the top of the rooftops about. But for an example, as far as that's taking away our original sketch there. Reducing the new sketch, and now I'm going to go in here. I think I've got enough here that I can really do like a final line kind of pass and even just show a little bit of that. I really haven't done that with any of these pieces. Let's make sure we're on a new layer here. So this is something, this is what I was talking about earlier, is like for final lines. This is where I will come in here and I will worry specifically about the actual line work that we'll see in the coloring book. Maybe that's a little too soon for this one, but we're going to go for it. Scowl kind of face. making sure that they don't look too silly. These simplified, like comic book style skulls. I like that line. This out here. Put it in. These lines come down. I can kind of cheat that like that. Now, one thing here I'm doing is using just one line thickness to get like these general contours here. And then I will move to a thinner line. Come in here, add in some details. Even though we're not going to have a lot of hatch marks, these details will really give whoever's coloring some indications and some kind of prompting for the intended lighting and values, or at least suggested. But you know, some room that, you know, if whoever's coloring this wants to color it from an overhead lighting or underhead lighting, or a side-headed lighting. Yeah, whichever direction they want to go. There still should be some option in that. And for the you know, for the final image also, and sometimes I will break this rule, but typically I don't like to. I won't mirror any of the piece because I want there to be some natural variation between the two sides. Even though, I mean, I've got everything's like really as symmetrical as really I need it to be. I'm not trying to make it, you know, I'm not trying to cheat it too hard. And for these final versions, I prefer it to actually be just kind of done in by hand. Bring just a little bit of these indicators, kind of show us where that front plane of the skull is. Bring this line here. Now considering each side, there's some stuff that, you know, I mean, it's a skull, so there should be some symmetry going on. But also, back that line up. It also doesn't need to, you know. If you really spend too much time looking at the human form in general, symmetry is like perfect, absolute perfect symmetry. Look up from one hand to the other, you look at your face, you know, cover one half, and then look at that, cover the other half, you know, some photography or whatever to like see things, symmetrical things, you know, we're not absolutely perfectly symmetrical. We're going to spend a little bit more time in here, and I've brought up symmetry a number of times in these videos. I'm sure I will bring it up again and again. It's definitely a thing to consider while drawing stuff that, I don't know, like maybe similar to this, or anything where symmetry is a concern. Bring in some detail. I tend to want to put more detail on the underside of these feathers because it helps to kind of the more lines, the heavier something feels. The fewer lines, the lighter it feels. And so I want the underside, or this side of the feather, to feel a little bit darker than the upper. So I'm gonna go in here. You know, we got that center stem of the feather. To bring in our little first initial cuts there. It'll break the contour line. A couple of cuts from the edges that don't make it to the center. A couple of cuts from the center. Makes more sense for it to go the other way, right? To cut it from the outside toward the middle. Otherwise, I mean, you really can risk making these things look like leaves. Put another layer here, down here. Okay, we can just kind of a couple of lines to fill that little space there. Indicate this bony kind of part right here. Maybe suggest that it's slightly feathery. I mean, this isn't realism. You know, there's nothing wrong with pulling out reference and stuff. I'm not necessarily doing that this time around here for this. We're just going. Just drawing. I cut in these lines in first and then add a couple more around them. Just so that I can work them into the shape at this point. I also try not to make it too patterned. It just doesn't look very good when things are too patterned. So you gotta change it up. Make sure that you're not just doing the same feather over and over again. But at the same time, you can see here, I'm not trying to put a lot of time into this. I mean, and this is something that can be worked up to the point where, you know, I mean, compositionally, you know, there's nothing exciting or bad about it. You know, this could be worked up to some highly finished oil painting. It could be, I mean, I could digitally paint this up, color it, prep it for a sticker, put it on Facebook as a tattoo flash idea. All of these things are likely to happen. Except for the oil painting stuff. I digitally color it, paint it up. It's kind of the plan with all of these. In addition to the All Skulls coloring book, sell these as tattoo flash. Just add them to the library. You know, sell them once. At least if that's all that happened, then I will have gotten a pretty decent, you know, return on a drawing like this. And it's not unusual for that to happen at all for me. So make a sticker out of it, put it in the coloring book. I mean, that's really, you know, it's initial primary use. Put it in a few different places. Try to make a little bit of profit in as many different places as I can with the piece. Sometimes, you know, that's part of the game. That's part of the goal. Try to sell your drawings as many times as you can, get as much as you can out of them, versus drawing tons and tons, which, you know, still has to be done, but still trying to get as much return as you can from this art. Exposure, you know, marketability, and this is, I mean, literally, like, this isn't I mean, you could draw along with me on something like this. Take this idea, draw your own version. I mean, this can be drawn 100 different ways, and turn out totally different, be totally unique. There's nothing plagiarizing about drawing a skull with bird wings, angel wings, feather wings. I mean, 'cause I got one with bat wings. I had a couple in here with weird wings, at least in the coloring book. Yeah. See how that's going along there. We're still doing pretty good. We're still hitting my, you know, my time schedule for these. Kind of give myself a certain amount of time to do this sort of thing. And not get too caught up on it. Can't spend all day. So the idea is to get what I can get within a time frame, at least for the video's sake. I am doing, you know, this kind of final lining for these pieces, generally like off camera, where I'm not necessarily trying to like rush through them. This one's pretty, you know, pretty straightforward, pretty easy, and so I'm pretty confident that I can work this piece out for the sake of a video. One of the things that for making these videos that I have kind of been wanting to make sure that I could do, because I've tried to do this a couple of different times, is come up with something that I could do regularly, often and easily. So having these little sketches worked up ahead of time, I don't have to like think of something on the spot. That's one of the problems, you know, trying to do it like in a daily sketch style. If anybody's familiar with, I did that a number of years back. To do something that, that I could do regularly and do a lot of, because that's kind of like, you know, how you got to do it. If you want to try to, you know, put something on YouTube and present some kind of like art-based content, that's you know, that's kind of where I'm at. You know, this is my song and dance. Is drawing the pictures. I never really minded anybody watching while I drew. I mean, you know, that kind of goes with the territory when you're tattooing, for sure. Not just the client, but anybody else that might be around. Being a little instructional, talking about what I'm doing, maybe why I'm doing it, stuff like that. You know, I've never really had a problem with it. Although that's not really my goal with this video series. Not that it couldn't be, but my intention is not to do instructional videos. This isn't like a how to draw skulls drawing page, or how to draw different things. It's just going to be whatever I am on list for to draw. And if that tends to be stuff like this for a project, or I might just come up with a bunch of other rough little sketches that we can do on this page while I talk about whatever, talk about drawing, talk about what I'm doing next. You know, and a lot of this, you know, you'll see more of the finished stuff. I talk more in depth about these projects and about the purposes and motivations behind a lot of the art projects I'm working on my Patreon page, patreon.com/mopandbucket. Yeah, so it's kind of part of the game these days. So here I am, drawing feathers, talking about stuff like it's Bob Ross. If Bob Ross drew skulls on the internet. Anybody ever see that documentary? What was that on? I can't even remember. Netflix or something. It was on something. But it was good. It was you know, I mean, in many ways it was really sad. But also you know, Bob Ross is a hell of a modern kind of media artist in a way, you know. And as far as like, you can go back and watch that dude paint. You know, he's passed, and you know, every year that goes by is another like fascinating kind of view of, we'll always be able to see this guy paint, watch him do it, have him tell you what's going on, why he's doing this or that, you know. Now, I mean, dude's like cranking out full paintings in 20 minutes, man. I mean, it is really bonkers. But to get to watch the paint, I mean, you know, say like being able to watch Davinci paint, or Rembrandt, or Frida Kahlo, or, you know, there's so many. It'd be so fascinating. You know, Salvador Dali, being able to watch him paint his pieces and stuff, and talk about what he's doing, what he's thinking, and you can really get that out of Bob Ross's pieces. You know, which would, you know, motivate you to paint your own version of whatever he painted, or try to find a print. You know, good luck finding an original. But yeah, finding a print of that particular piece, you know, that you watched him paint, gives you like a bit of more of an insight, more of a personal connection to his art, which is, I mean, it's really cool, and it's I think it's something it's really fascinating, really powerful as an artist, and I think not just to me, you know. I mean, because there's a lot of artists moving to YouTube, to producing videos, you know, even if their artwork isn't it all connected to videography. Like, we've all got to become videographers now. We've all got to find a way to present ourselves on social media in a way that that helps support our art, that helps support our work, you know, that lets us keep doing what we do. And, you know, that's just where it's all moving to. I imagine another, you know, handful of years, it's just really going to be more like automatic versus like right now it still feels like, well, should I get on there? Do I need to? I think that question is going to be a foregone conclusion. The further afield we go, just with the way that media is going, you know, and this democratization of media, it gives someone like me this opportunity right now, you know, and the and that choice, you know, any artist right now that's not getting online, you know, that's a choice. and I think that the pressure will be that as we go, yeah, it'll become less and less of a choice. It just won't be as workable, especially as the audience moves further and further to finding their art and their artists online. I think we're ready to move on to the other wing. Now I'm tempted to just dupe it over. Just copy that sucker over. This is, though, the point where I want to kind of like check back with the other one to an extent. That way I can mirror some decisions I know in here and see the difference between one side and the other. I added some feathering, completed some feathering over here that I want to reproduce on this other side. So right now I'll just kind of focus on looking at what's going on. Don't need it to be 100%. Part of it too is that in some ways I just spent all that time drawing the feathers out for the other side. Here I am, it's all kind of reversed. And that's one of the things, relying on like the that through line of each feather, that center line. Now see, it's not just too evenly spaced. So I need to make sure these patterns aren't too much like that. It's one thing that I just don't. It's something that, I don't know, it's sometimes it's natural. It works fine with like machine type elements. Having like these like idiosyncratic little spacing patterns and stuff, I tend to, and I don't know why, but I tend to do it. I have to kind of like remain conscious to not do it, catch myself, because it'll really throw off certain qualities. If it gets too patterny, then it really becomes obvious to the viewer. And most of the errors in a piece, in general, are really only going to be visible to the artist and maybe like an art critic. But to the general audience, unless they're really egregious, sometimes people can tell, something doesn't look right, they don't know why. Other times it's just, it's really, really clear. But for the most part, especially in higher levels of experience and technical skill with drawing, that there'll be errors in your art that only you see. You don't always necessarily have to point them out or worry them too hard, or assume that everybody's going to see where you made a decision that maybe not was like a perfect decision. So that can be this really weird part of this really weird phenomenon of and as an artist, as an illustrator, you can look at other people's work and really be like, oh man, I could just get this and that to work like this person, and pull off the quality and everything, because as an art consumer, even an artist will get caught up looking at other people's art in a non-critical way, especially artists that they admire or have like a higher technical prowess or similar technical prowess. And there's this weird thing of like, no matter how good you get as an artist, you'll always see it as, you did it. You'll always see your hand in it, your mistakes, your hesitations, the stress associated with the piece. There'll be all kinds of like, baggage kind of associated to a piece, especially if you drew it under some kind of duress or fear, or I got this deadline, or I whatever reason. There's all kinds of interesting reasons that you could be unsettled or under the gun in so many ways while you're working on a piece, that when you go back and look at it, you kind of like get that feeling of dread, or oh man, I hated that time period, or this piece was so difficult, so hard to get right, that I was just so relieved that it was done, that I don't even want to be reminded of how much trouble it was to me for whatever reason. And yeah, so we can really put a lot more information into a piece where people are like, oh man, that's so cool, that's that's the coolest thing you've done, that's this and that, I really like that piece or this piece. And really the best response, regardless of how you feel about it, is thank you. And then recognizing that people aren't going to associate it in the same way you do can be really helpful. Can be really helpful to disassociate from your own artwork on a certain level that I think is healthy, oddly enough. And there's a lot of value into that, especially as a production artist, being able to, as they say, kill your darlings. You might love a piece, but it may not be what anybody wants, and you may enjoy the piece because of like, oh man, it all just came together, I had the vision in my head, I sat down, bam, I just rocked it out, it was just what I wanted it to be, it's super cool, and people are like, oh yeah, no, it's cool, but but nobody is interested in it like on a level that you are. And so in that way, and you don't like, you don't throw it in the trash, you don't set it on fire or anything, but you definitely still got to move on. Maybe that's a particular one that you just like, okay, fine, this one's for me. I like this, I love it, I enjoyed the experience. This one's going to be for me. Let's see if we can draw something else that other people might connect to. Because that's part of it too. Is it's the connection. Does the piece speak? Does it speak to anybody? It doesn't have to speak to everybody. Sometimes a piece could be, say, really, really straightforward and generic, say like this, the skull with the wings. That's not really a super creative kind of concept. It's not anything that people are going to be like, oh man, that really moved me, At least I don't think so, but, might be surprised. It might be similar enough to something somebody else already saw, and they make some other association that I might never, imagine or think of, unless I spend a minute trying to brainstorm. Oh, it looked like my dad's tattoo, or oh, I remember seeing a sticker like that on something, or that it just makes me think of whatever, I saw something similar to it somewhere else, and I like your version more, kind of thing. Because that's, nothing wrong with that, Every artist, especially every tattoo artist, has drawn a rose or two, and And so often it's not so much about the rose as about how this particular person draws that rose. In fact, something like a rose, or these more straightforward pieces are really, really interesting, like measures of an artist, where you can kind of, if you had 15 artists all, say, paint a rose, and then you put all those next to each other, you're going to get 15 different roses. You're going to get, but you're going to see something of the artist in each rose. And so it might be, this person would really work for this style of art, or for this kind of thematic composition. This other one will work for this other style. Maybe somebody, you can tell the difference between, like, all right, so this one's going to be doing the hyper realistic stuff. This one's going to be doing the more traditional stuff. This one's kind of cartoony. This other one's kind of got like this weird sci-fi bend. Here's the horror artist. And so it's, you can learn a lot just by some standardized kind of imagery, and then using that as a base. Because it's so much harder to say judge somebody, oh, this guy just, he does a bunch of skulls, and it's all comic booky and stuff, and so it's kind of hard to tell, say, what I could kind of do, with other subject matters by looking at this stuff. And seeing this kind of stuff might be like, oh yeah, okay, well, I probably don't want this guy to be drawn like my photographic, kind of realistic spider drawing, because he doesn't seem to have that style to him. But if you check out my Instagram, I just posted a realistic spider drawing that I did as a commission, and I don't think it was too bad. But I kind of trained up for a certain versatility in my abilities, a commercial versatility, and then there's my own preferences, which in a way are maybe a little less refined and more bent towards creativity than realism. One of the things, like, I don't get super excited about realism as much as I do about things that are like really unusual, visually creative treatments, and not so much like I like abstract. I'm not really like drawn to anything abstract, at least not in general. But I do like stuff that tends to be more bizarre, more unusual, and sometimes even just slightly. When I was a kid, I literally had the tapestry wall hanging of dogs playing poker. Man, I had that thing hanging up in my bedroom. For I don't know, since I was like 12 or something, maybe even a little bit younger. Moved and brought it with me and stuff. It was originally my dad's, and then my dad's just like, "Why do you even have that thing, man?" And I was like, I love this. I wish I knew what had happened to that old tapestry, because I rocked the shit out of that, man. That was, and just stuff like that, kind of Salvador Dali-esque. I don't know. It was fun. I loved it, and that's the kind of stuff I can really dig on. It doesn't have to be super distorted, abstractified, cartoonified. I just like it to have a creative angle in general. That's where my tastes tend to reach towards. So yeah, I'm just gonna put in a little bit of this kind of random edging here because I like it, And it kind of suggests and prompts these kind of shadows and stuff. I don't think this is going to be too bad here. I think we might actually see this. Well, and this is one of the final tests. Let's turn this off. Let's see how things stand alone just on these lines. It's not too bad. It's not too bad. I think I do want to break a couple of tangents at the center line on this particular feather as it goes this way and it connects to this other feather. Don't like that. I don't want to change this though, so I'll just thicken that up nice, chunky. Thicken this one up a little bit more. Oh, put that little crossbar there in that point. So we'll do a little bit of that. That seems okay. These outer wings, as they come out to stand on their own, don't quite need as thick a line as some of these other ones do to separate themselves. This one just kind of just disappeared. Do that. Alright, and I managed to stretch this video out by going through a few extra steps. But yeah, I think that's it right there. We did it. This one's going to be in the coloring book. Yeah. Bam. I'm going to do a quick little just save this right now. We got that. We'll switch back over to this monkey and we are done here today, guys. Thanks for stopping by. Thanks for checking us out. Remember to like, subscribe, follow, join. Check out the Patreon. Check out our website. We got t-shirts. Check out the Facebook. Jade Monkey Productions. We got stickers. We got art prints. We got stuff. Check out the stuff. And come by next time. Watch along for another drawing. They're not all going to be skulls. Just as soon as I'm done with this all skulls project, and then I got some other things in mind. So we'll see you next time. Later.